Hi, and welcome to this week's GMBN Tech Show. A little bit of an odd one actually, because technically we normally film this on a Monday and it goes out on the Wednesday, but I'm going to be on a plane then, so we thought we'd have a bit of a chat, a bit of a recap about some of the rad stuff we've seen the last week here out in California.
Cram it in now.
Yeah, I mean, the Sea Otter Classic, what can you say about it? It's an unreal event, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, the atmosphere of the whole event has been just unreal and consistent the whole way through. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And I think especially brilliant because Mark just got a brand new bowhead bike, which is probably the most tech thing in existence here.
Yes,
Tell us a little bit about it. Don't go too much because we're featuring it in a video.
We've got it coming up, yeah, but it's an amazing hand crank bowhead bike. So it's got articulation plus hand crank. So there's a lot going on. I've got to learn to ride it better than I can at the moment, but already I know it is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, I heard you managed to power through with a front flat as well, so I reckon we might need a bit more tech on there to stop those punctures happening.
Yeah, we don't. I need your advice. Yeah.
Yeah, all good. Right, so tell us about some of the cool stuff you've seen. You know, I've seen loads of stuff. I could go on all day, and I'll tell you a bit in a minute. But
I tell you what, one of the things I was really pleased to see was Duncan Shaw's prototype Martyn Trials bike.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
It's got a Hawaiian shirt in a bike.
Looks so nice. Yeah, it's an amazing paint job for starters, but it's built around making use of the inspired Trials fork, which is in itself got an amazing piece of design and obviously Trials heritage to it. But to see a big brand like that embracing Trials and using it as a marketing product, which is really what it's going to be, means we're going to see great edits from Duncan Shaw and big brands embracing one of my favourite sports.
Yeah, well, that's sick. And, well, I mean, I love the sort of the Inverness name.
Yeah, it's
that
cool.
As well, a nice little link. So I never knew Inverness was a place in Marin County. Just so happens that he's a bit of a Scottish theme running through that.
A little bit, yeah. It's a very cool looking bike. I love it.
Yeah, what
very
else?
Nice. I think one of the things... Well, did you see Nico Mullally's bike?
Yeah, oh my God, how can I forget that? So,
yeah.
I mean, for me, it was probably the best thing I could see. Not necessarily the coolest, because there was some other stuff I'd like to talk about, but seeing that bike, I mean, I've been following this Frameworks project. We've referenced it on several shows. If you're not aware of it, we'll put a link to one of them down there and you can watch them yourself. But this is his latest iteration with a mid-pivot.
Yes.
Yeah, so
yeah,
kind of good. He's
yeah.
kind of going against the grain there. So he's tried the low, he's tried the high, and he's got the mid pivot, and he's using the O chain to basically take the chain growth out of the equation. So good to see that race bike.
Yeah, and some great stuff. And I tell you what, I was really pleased, once you'd explained it to me, to see Orange moving forward in the world of mountain biking.
Yeah,
that was really cool to see, because at first glance I'd missed it, but once you showed me, I was like, oh right, okay, yeah, something new.
Do you know what? It's a really valid point, because Orange almost painted themselves in a corner with their bike design, I think. I mean, it's no offence to Orange, but their design is so iconic and it's so them that if they went to do, I don't know, a traditional 4-bar back end, they'll lose their identity.
Yeah.
So I was kind of really pleased to see like a linkage activated single pivot, and it still maintains that form that they have. Oh, you need to watch my brake videos, mate. That was awful. What a noise.
What about you? What was some of your favourite stuff at the show?
Do you know what? Calvin Jones from Parktool. Completely randomly. That man, he literally is a magician, and I don't know how he can just keep going the way he does. I reckon he's probably been here every day about 7:30, and he's fixed about 20 odd bikes. He's fixing kids' bikes the other day before we've even got here.
Amazing.
And then he's fixing everyone's bikes all day long, free of charge, and showing them how to do it. I saw him last night when I was at dinner, and it was only about 9 o'clock at night, but he was like a ghost of a man walking through. He looked exhausted.
Yeah, I saw him at breakfast. He didn't look much better. Did you see the John Player special paintwork on the Forbidden bike?
I did, yeah, that Druid that was on the Crank Brothers stand. I tell you what, like, I mean, I'm a sucker for a crazy paint job. And in fact, I've got a link to another one here. But there's something about, like, I didn't even really see it at first because it was black and it's got like the gold pinstriping. Yeah. And I mean, it's gorgeous, and the more you looked at it, the more details you started seeing on there. But the guy that painted that, right, so I've got to get this right, is a Technar, right? So there's an outfit that are based in Moab, and they were based up by the Pit Viper crew, and he was like, you know, full like tash, mullet, you know, 80s, 90s look, all the crazy clothing and stuff. And this is the bike that he painted. It's his own bike. I walked past it. I was like, oh my God.
Look at that.
The most customised thing I've seen here. So he's got like the 40-hour paint job on there, and it doesn't include prepping the frame and taking all the stuff apart to even do that in the first place. And then look at the cranks on it, right? So I'm just going to show Mark this. You'll see the picture on screen. So these cranks are made by a company called Five Dev, or Fifth Dev, basically. Now that's the company that Nico, in a roundabout way, basically, Nico's been working with on his frameworks project. So the cranks he's using on his bike, they also made some of the rockers and the big lower sort of link from the bottom bracket there. The same company, and they're making some beautiful stuff like that crank, chainring, the pedals, and their stems. Just gorgeous stuff.
That's a pretty piece of
but look at the paint job.
Bicycle bling.
Like everything was painted on it, even the hubs. I mean, you've got to have some guts to ride that bike, the colour of that. But I mean, the purely customised thing, I think that is the standout for me.
Very, very nice. Very nice.
But there's more. There's more, right? So I actually ended up talking too much about the Contra bike, right? So this was a steel bike, a high pivot, a really forward pivot. I mean, I ended up filming two pieces. I filmed a shorter one, which we featured in one of the tech videos earlier. I forget which one now. But also, I filmed a longer piece, so I'm just going to throw to it. Check this out. So as expected, rummaging around at Sea Otter, you're going to find some really cool stuff you've never seen before. So this is a prototype bike from Contra Bikes. Now, have a look at how refined this bike is. And the thing that's immediately outstanding about it, to me, that I've just found out, this is the third prototype to get to a bike this finished. She's got a high pivot, a really forward pivot here as well, with a linkage to drive it, and it's just a phenomenal looking bike. So Evan, the designer of this bike, he's an ex-World Cup racer, and we're going to chat to him about this bike and find out exactly why he's gone this route. So he's got a 4130 steel frame up here. Obviously you can see the geometry is bang on point. It's got very low standover height, so this frame I think is equivalent to a large, and I think you're looking at about 480 reach, so it's absolutely bang on the money. Extremely low standover height, and it makes the bike look wild. I think this thing just looks so nice. Let's chat to him a little bit about the linkages and why he chose to go this route, and actually how he got to get this far on a third prototype. The second and first have also been raced as well, so I think that says a lot about how he's designed the bikes. Let's chat to him. Okay, so we're here with Evan from Contra Bikes. Now, I almost don't know where to start because there's so much cool stuff going on here. So I guess the first thing is, why did you choose this design when you were picking to build your own bike?
I chose this design just because I'm striving to make what I feel to be the perfect kinematic, or at least as perfect as I think it can be. And I really like high pivot bikes. I think they have a lot of benefits, but I didn't like the drawbacks. You know, the small idler on a lot of them, a lot of friction in the drivetrain. They can have some funky characteristics. So I really strive to keep all the positives of a high pivot bike without having the negatives that can come with it. So.
Okay, so let's break this down into a few things. So firstly, it's a steel frame. So tell us a little bit about why you chose steel. Then we'll move on to the linkage design and the pivot placement and what made you sort of choose that path.
Yeah, so I chose steel. It was a kind of a long process. Originally, I wanted to make the bike out of aluminum, but then I kind of got turned off by the fact that it's difficult to find tubing in different wall thicknesses that are specific for bikes. It's especially during the pandemic, it's very hard to find extrusions that are right. And I don't have a bunch of money to throw into new tooling to get special custom tooling. So I started looking at steel, and there's so many more options. It has a great fatigue life, so it lasts a lot longer, which is really important to me. I want the bike to last 15, 20 years if I can, under hard riding. And then also there's a lot of local frame builders that build in steel. So I knew that we could have a very high quality of the welding because they're experienced with that. And there's no heat treat after, which is a nice step as well. Plus, I mean, the tubes, I love the small tubes. I think it looks amazing. And I think it adds value too, you know, because it lasts for a very long time. So
yeah, I mean, the steel frames are super popular in the UK. Like, I think the UK viewers will absolutely love where you're going with this. So let's dive into the linkages, the position, the huge idler on there, and why you chose this suspension design.
Yeah, so the linkage design I came up with, it's the second iteration basically of the concept that I came up with. It started off as a high single pivot, but forwards, very far forwards. And the reason for that is that it allows you to achieve an anti-squat characteristic that you can't with other bikes. Also, on the single pivot, it allows you to drop the anti-rise, which is the way that it brakes under braking. It allowed you to lower it to a more balanced position. So With this multi-link setup, you have a virtual pivot in a sense that's forwards, and it actually moves forwards further as it goes through the travel. And the benefits of that: better braking characteristic, lighter weight, stiffer, because the links are far apart, so it distributes the load nicely. I kept with the same packaging as the first one with a vertical shock placement, which I think is really nice. And then you still have a straight seat tube there. So, but yeah, the big benefits for sure: pedaling performance of it, braking, very good leverage ratio as well, very very tuned. I didn't overlook anything. So.
Yeah. So something with the high pivots that's often discussed is the efficiency of running a chain that's longer over additional idlers, basically. So tell us how you've reduced the efficiency to make it, maximise the efficiency with the bigger wheels on there.
Yeah, so the idler pulley is 24 teeth, and the big reasoning for that is just to decrease the angle of the chain as it goes on and off the chainring. Everybody knows, like, you look at the pulley wheels, people make oversized pulley wheels to reduce drag. This is a similar concept. Also, increase the longevity of it, because when you have a really small idler, it's putting a lot of load into a small area. So this is smoother because the chain is engaging smoother. I also use a really nice bearing, which a bunch of people have been trying to ask me what it is, and I'm keeping that close to my chest right now. But I did all the homework to make sure that this thing is, honestly, a lot of people hop on it and they think it's smoother than the normal bike with a normal drivetrain. And also, it being more far forwards, it reduces the extreme angle of your chain. So, it looks a little funky being that far forwards, but in your climbing gears, your chain line is actually quite a bit straighter. So the efficiency, I've no problems going and riding 7 hours on this thing.
Do you know what, Mark? I mean, that bike was amazing, but I wouldn't have found out about that bike if we hadn't visited Giro just before coming here. So you might have seen on last week's show, we went to visit some of our friends around Santa Cruz. And we called in there, basically we had a tour, saw some cool helmets, we saw some development stuff, including clothing. And we were tipped off about that bike. So, I would never have seen that bike. It was tucked away on the EXT stand, actually. I mean, they had some pretty special stuff, but I could keep going about this. But it just made me realise the people here are what makes this place so cool. I saw Hans earlier, and I'm like, I have to get a picture of Hans every time I see him. I'm still like a ridiculous super fan. Yeah. You must have seen some pretty cool people around.
Well, I mean, Hans Ray for one. But I tell you what, I've got a winner for me on this trip. I didn't see it coming, but when we went to Ibis Bikes, meeting Scott Nicol was the coolest dude, and I could just feel the vibes of mountain biking history oozing out of him. It was epic to meet him. It was so cool, and he recognised me when I saw him at the show, and I was so chuffed. It was great.
I completely forgot. That feels like so long ago. Yeah. So on Wednesday we went to visit Ibis Bikes. Now Ibis have always been based in Santa Cruz on Mission Street, or just off Mission Street, and they've actually got a new facility. So skipping back to 2019, they were making a couple of their frames here in the US, and they wanted to expand their production, and they've got a whole new place. So we filmed something. Check this out, it's nuts. So this is a super cool little visit. So back of Santa Cruz here, we've come to visit Ibis Cycles. Now previously they were located near Mission Street, but this new production facility just outside Santa Cruz is where they're actually making from scratch the XC frames. In 2019, I visited the original Ibis HQ in Santa Cruz, and that's the place where all the bikes are assembled, and they've got a museum there and all the other cool stuff you imagine. But Scott Ibis showed me basically how they're intending on producing frames themselves using techniques that I've never seen before. So we're well aware of having big molds for the frames to go into. Those molds are moved into ovens. But what they're doing here is a completely different concept. They're using self-heated molds. Now these molds, along with the entire production process they've got here, use less energy, they use less parts, they use fewer staff. Everything about it is better for the environment, and they can control every element about it. And we're pretty lucky to be here today to see some of these frames being put together. Come and check this out. So this is just an indication of some of the parts that go into building one of these frames. Now you could expect in other forms of frame manufacturing, 300 to 400 pieces of carbon could go into a mold. With this sort of system that Ibis are using, it's about 100 pieces, and everything is perfectly shaped. You can see the shape of these. I'm not going to take any of these off the table and mess with it. Now these go into one of these molds, so you can see the open molds here. Now obviously you can't get too close to these, but the whole point is they close over afterwards, and they basically plug into the wall and they self-heat. so you don't have to move these into the oven. And as you can see over here, you can see some closed ones that are actually in the process of curing at the moment. It's such a minimal process. I love this. So that's obviously fairly warm at the moment. After a while, they literally pop it open and a frame comes out. I think it's nuts. And if you add on top of that, the fact that this facility here is entirely powered by the solar panels on the roof, and also it almost cancels out the energy that they're producing. It's insane. Okay, so we're up on the roof of the new Ibis Cycles, let's say, production facility. Now, when I last visited, it was 2019, so pre-COVID, and Scott walked me through the process of what they were trying to do at the time, which was look at the future development of making frames here in the United States. Now, we got to witness some frames being laid up, but it was just like 2 or 3 frames. So tell us basically from the roof down, actually, what's going on here and how this works, because it seems like everything here is working in your favor. You've got this amazing new building, you've got the solar power, and you're doing everything you can to sort of reduce your energy output.
Yeah, so we looked at the way that the Asian factories were making the frames and realized that there was a lot of energy wasted. And, you know, we have this beautiful California sunshine and this big gigantic roof. So we decided to put solar panels up here. We got some favorable tax credits and things like that. So there's 144 kilowatts of solar being generated here, and it powers the entire production facility. Plus we actually feed the grid with about 50% extra power.
Wow.
And so that's, you know, that was our goal, is to become relatively energy neutral. And we actually offset a lot of what it costs to make the actual carbon prepreg with additional, you know, with the additional power that we're producing to the grid. And so the building is now full of a bunch of very interesting molds, which you'll see photos of and video of, that are self-heated, much more energy efficient than the Asian factories in the way they do that. And one of our hopes is that maybe they'll adopt some of the practices that we're doing here that are much more energy efficient, just better for the planet overall.
But it's not just the energy that goes in that's making these frames so helpful for the environment, it's also your production process. So I've seen like the printer downstairs and the way it's stenciling out the pieces of carbon. And I think you told me previously it's something like 300 to 400 pieces of carbon that can go into other frames, and yours is down to like 100?
Yeah, 100 to 110, I think Preston told us earlier. Yeah, so yeah, we just examined all the processes that were being done in other, you know, manufacturing facilities, and just tried to figure out all sorts of ways that we could reduce the amount of time and material and energy in how those factories were done. So yeah, by using a big CNC cutter and stacking multiple plies of the carbon prepreg, we're able to reduce the amount of time that people spend hand cutting and hand laying up the carbon onto the molds that goes into the frame. So the Asian factories were reporting about 87 hours of labor to build one of the frames that we sell. Yeah. And we're at around 35 hours now, with a goal of around 31.
So less time, less energy, less manpower, less everything.
Yeah, and you know, we use these nice nesting programs to optimize how much carbon is being cut by the laser cutter. You know, like almost no waste comes from there. And yeah, it's been a very, very difficult process, but we're now in production. I mean, I think we're 8 years or so into this project from the time it started. So it's not easy, and nothing but respect for the other factories that we were looking at, and you know, they're doing amazing work. But we were, you know, by a bunch of brain teasers, we were able to, you know, figure out a few things to make it slightly more efficient.
I find it staggering in the 3 years since I saw you building just 1 or 2 frames. You're now building the entire XC range out here. Yeah. I guess maybe in the future you might consider doing more lines, but that's a huge prospect to do that.
It's a huge project. Yeah. I think we figured that if we did all of our production here, we would need 600-700 employees. You know, and it's obviously we couldn't do that in this facility.
Sure.
Yeah. But this is the story behind this building is really cool. It was built in 1999 by MCI WorldCom, and it was meant to be a data center. So there was 65,000 pounds of copper that we pulled out of the racks that were running through the ceiling, and we had a bunch of gigantic air conditioners to keep the data center cool. So all of that went away. We had a big diesel generator, backup generator that powered the data center if the power went out. And they built it in '99, and they spent $33 million building this building, and they never occupied it. They never moved in because first of all, the dot-com crash happened, but also Monterey Bay, which is right there, is a marine sanctuary, and they had meant to run a fiber optic cable, undersea fiber optic cable through there, but it's like, no, can't do that. Can't do that. So that was a relatively big mistake.
So a
by
useless
someone.
Building by then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this building sat vacant for all those years, and until we purchased it just a few years ago. Yeah.
Wow, meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you what, it's an incredible story, and as you've probably seen by some of the footage, we've got to see firsthand some of the frames being made literally downstairs. So a huge thank you for inviting us and showing us around.
Our pleasure.
Super cool stuff.
Yeah.
What an amazing place.
Do you know what? I think the future is bright. When you've got companies like that are trying to cut down all of their energy and stuff.
Yeah.
You've got other companies like Markov trying to, sort of decrease everything they possibly can. I think the future is definitely bright.
Yeah, and there was just so much about that visit to that place that just made me so stoked. It was so good, so good.
Yeah,
what an event, and what a place.
I absolutely love it. This is a highlight of the year for me. Every time I come here, it's the absolute best. But sadly, I've pretty much got to get out the show now, pack my bags and drive to the airport, whereas all the rest of the GMBN team, I'm sad to say, are carrying on their US adventure.
I feel bad, man.
Where
I
are you
feel
going?
bad. We're heading off to Bentonville to check out what is becoming a very hot topic in mountain biking. This place is supposed to be really special, so we're going to go there and have a look. I feel so bad you're not coming, because I tell you what, everyone out there, if you saw how hard Doddy and Anna work at this event, you wouldn't believe it, and all the creators behind the cameras. It is a lot going on, and us GMBN presenters, we get away with murder. So you've done a good job, man. You've done a good job.
Cheers, Mark. Yeah, I mean, it's not often I say it, but I am actually jealous of the trip you guys are going to go on. So make sure you look out for content coming up on GMBN. There's going to be insane stuff. Oh, I just thought there's one more shout out I need to say. It's Rita Blake. So Blake came out here and he's actually been making a video with Kona. He raced the Kona. He actually won his race on it. How cool is that?
Well, actually, that's not that cool.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. It's because I did a race and I actually won. I won the Lanton Rouge.
Oh, what's that? The best loser, isn't it?
It's dead last.
Yeah, look it up. That's from the Tour de France. That was a great story, actually. I think that's all we've got time for today. But thank you for watching. Thanks for watching all the tech videos from the week. Please do also watch the content over on EMBN as well, because we've done a few videos for those guys as well. And, of course, anything that's been up on GMBN. And we'll see you soon. And I'll see you in a week or two, I guess.
I will do.
See you later, everyone.